This week on the Push Pull Legs podcast, we welcome possibly the world's fittest man, Mr. Ross Edgley. Three, two, one. Let's get extreme, Dan.
Hey guys, welcome to the Push Pull Legs podcast with myself, Dammy.
And me, Tom Hall. What's going on, bud?
Yeah, good. I'm speaking to you twice in 2 days, which is annoying, but it's got to be done. So this is going to go out 2 weeks before Body Power. So if you're going to Body Power, let us know because we'll come and say hello. And I'm sure that in a minute when we introduce our guest, I'm sure he's probably going as well. We have a special guest with us today, but before we introduce him, don't forget to follow us on Instagram. So I'm at Dan Teambox. Tom's changed his recently.
At .ppl podcast. So Tom
who's going to remember that?
.podcast. Just go for any third space accounts. That's fine. Just click on Dan's thing. It's fine. I'll be all over that. So So without further ado, Mr. Ross Edgley has joined us today. What's going on, Ross?
Oh, how's things, guys? I love how laid back this is. This is nice. This is chilled. You just got tea, just catching up.
Yeah, so I suppose, Ross, to give you a background as to why we do this podcast. So basically, me and Tom used to work together at Third Space in London. I then decided to move to Bath to get away from him, and he thought it'd be a good idea if we did a weekly podcast so that we could catch up every week still and still stay in touch. And that is literally what we do. We literally record our phone call once a week, and for some reason, people like it. I have no idea.
This is exactly so. With obviously with the book coming out and stuff, I put out on my social media and I was like, "Look, guys, I want to do a few more podcasts and get chatting." And everyone was just like, "You need to go and catch up with Tom and Dan." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And so it just seems like whatever formula you do, it works. It works.
Yeah, and God knows why, because we don't know anything. And yet people just like listening to us rant. It's we do. That's the one thing I suppose we do well is we do rant. We have a special feature at the end of our show called "Stupid Things on the Internet This Week." So I think that tends to be where we kind of go off on a tangent and we talk about some ridiculous thing that we found about. Oh, I don't know. What was it last week? It was something about squats making your hips wide and like you shouldn't ever do them.
No, it was a classic of Brightside, right? They've given out loads of tips of just how squats are definitely going to make your abs absolutely hypertrophy, and they'll just make you absolutely just. And then basically instead of squatting, you should just do sit-ups. It's fun, actually fun. So that's exactly the same thing, right? But without further ado, I mean, one of the main reasons we know Ross is here because basically he's got a book out. And we need to talk about it because everybody's been spouting about it, to be honest. So we need to actually delve into what it's about, mate. I mean, we talked a bit pre-show, just to let everybody know, the listeners, so we know exactly what's going on. Dan's read the cover, so we'll be fine.
Well, I mean, the only reason I've read the cover is because I can't open Instagram without seeing it at the moment. Yeah, I go on Instagram and it's like, oh, world's fittest book again. It's like, yeah, I'll definitely get a copy of that when it's out. So it's worked, Ross. Whatever you've done, it's worked. So that's the main thing.
No, that's it. I think the support has been amazing, and I know we were chatting off air about this, but just about the title, the world's fittest book, and I probably need to start by saying, it is a bold title, but it's very much a sort of testament to the people who have helped actually write it. So, the strength chapter, I was lucky enough to write that with Andy Bolton. So, first guy to deadlift 1,000 pounds, 7-time powerlifting champion, world powerlifting champion. Jeff Capes, 2 times world's strongest man. The speed chapter written with the help of Linford Christie. And so it's really a testament to those. I say in the book, Michael Foucault, who's a famous French theologian, and he said, I'm no guru. My job is to make windows where there were once walls. And so certainly with this, I'm kind of like, look, I'm not the guru here. I just ran around with my notepad and pen, collating the teachings of these incredible people. I'm definitely not going, I'm the world's fittest, man, this is my book. That's not what it is. So, yeah.
But honestly, Ross would have literally run around and gone to these people, but literally just, how far is it? Oh, yeah, let's 6 marathons. Nah, that's fine. Yeah. All right, let's go.
Yeah, so Ross told us before we came on air that he was like, "Oh, sorry if I'm a bit tired. I've just swam 20 kilometers." Now, that's more than I've swam in my life combined as a total. And probably actually, I'm going to go on a limb. Combined run and swim together, that's in a day that I've done in my life. So, yeah, crazy man. And Tom used to do a bit of swimming, and I can't imagine he ever used to swim that far in a session.
Sprint 50 meters to 100 meters. Yeah, I'm flying down there, mate. I'll challenge you that, Ross. But apart from that, I will die if I had to turn around in the pool.
It's not. It's just it just becomes like an eating competition, really. The Tupperware just at the end of like the lane, and you see all the casual swimmers are just like, "What is he doing? He's been in here hours, and I'm just eating." It's just an eating competition with a little bit of swimming, basically.
That's amazing. So, I mean, like more in the book, you kind of said, I know in terms of your like breakdown of the book, you said it's more towards, so it kind of encompasses every single type of training, of what you said in your blurb about it. What do you think is maybe the highlight of person you chatted to, or if you had to pick one out for if it was general training, sprint training, strength training, obviously ultra stuff that you do? Is there any kind of highlights that personally you were looking at it?
Yeah. That's a really good question. Just because I think like obviously the strength chapter I'm very, very proud of, just because you have Jeff Capes and Andy Bolton. But I think what's been really nice is they're very sort of well celebrated. A lot of people, know about them. Whereas the endurance chapter of the book, sort of talking about what I learned from the Sam Bushman of Namibia. So I lived in Africa for a month, and I was out there living with them, hunting, sort of covering an ultramarathon a day in search of food. And what was amazing is comparing what I learned there about barefoot running, forefoot striking, proprioception in the feet, everything like that they intuitively understood, not because they'd read studies and everything, they just kind of intuitively understood that would help them, run 100 kilometers to go and get food. And then coming back over to England and then sort of running my first fell race and immersing myself in everything that is the Lake District and fell running, some mountain running, they had very similar biomechanics and intuitively understood, again, not through studies, but just because they were like, my great granddad used to run in these shoes, and he'd run up that Scarfell Pike quicker than anyone else. And so there was this kind of forgotten folklore of fitness, and the exchanging of ideologies. And that's genuinely why I love what you guys do, because it is, I know you say, you're just catching up on the phone, but that's how fitness used to be. There'd be just an exchange of ideologies, the 18th century strongmen of Europe, Eugene Sandow, father of bodybuilding. That's what it was. They'd just go, "Oh, Tom, what works for you? Dan, what works for you?" You'd be like, "I don't know, I tried this the other day." And so I think the endurance chapter probably, because of the unsung heroes of it.
I guess so, yeah. This the kind of like, I don't know, it sounds bad to say, but it's the far less sexy kind of part of fitness, right? The endurance. I mean, we've said it before on this podcast that nobody comes to us, Dan, like wanting to change their physique and goes, "I definitely want to look like Mo Farah." And we're like, that doesn't generally happen. We love Mo, but yeah, that doesn't happen, right? Apart from Rakesh, obviously. That's one of Dan's former clients that looks exactly like him. So
it's a funny one actually, because I think you're dead right. I think it's one of those where I look at strongmen and I look at all that sort of stuff, and I understand why people find those feats, of strength incredible and they're celebrated, but I think there's an element of endurance that, for me, the reason that I think it deserves so much more credit is that I just think you have to be insane to do it. Like to lift up 100 odd kilos over your head over and over again. It's kind of like, well, yeah, you just do that until you can't do it anymore. But with like endurance stuff, it's not that you can't do it. It's that you've got to. Your brain is kind of like, okay, I could do it, I could carry on, but can I be bothered? Like, that's the thing with me with endurance. It's like, I could do 1,000 calories of cardio a day, but can I be bothered to do it? Whereas I physically can't lift 100 kilos over my head over and over again. It gets to a point where you just literally physically can't do it. Whereas with the endurance stuff, it's as much mental as it is physical. So I always appreciate that. And I think to myself, like, anyone who runs a marathon, for me, I'm like, hats off to you, because I just couldn't do it. I just wouldn't. I just don't know where they get that drive and desire to do it from. Like, that's why I'm interested to find out from you, I guess, where where that desire to go, I'm going to swim 20 kilometers in a pool today comes from. Like, where does it come from?
Yeah, because do you know what? And this was partly the reason that I started writing the book as well, is because so many ideologies kind of started to become blurred. And what I mean by that is, obviously we've got, the components of fitness, strength, speed, stamina, cardiorespiratory endurance, and we're always trying to put things into pigeonholes. So we're always trying to say, he is an endurance athlete, he's a bodybuilder, and he's a power lifter, and never should the two worlds mix, because they've got to be separate. Whereas, to use an example that's sort of, because we're all very familiar with powerlifting, Andy Bolton, whenever if for anyone sort of listening, if you've not seen it, look at the first 1,000-pound deadlift. And when you see him deadlifting, Andy Bolton used to always grip the bar and perform what looked like 3 knee bends before he actually went to go and lift the bar. Reason being, he was applying principles of speed training. Verkhoshansky, one of the greatest strength and conditioning coaches to ever live, he pioneered the depth jump. And that was if me, Tom and Dan all went down to the gym and we were like, right, box jumps. And we started to see who could jump the highest on a box jump. Verkhoshansky found that by jumping from something that was slightly elevated, landing, so there's an eccentric contraction in the legs are in tension, but they are lengthening. You store that elastic energy, that kinetic energy in the legs, and you have a more powerful box jump afterwards. There's a more powerful concentric phase. And that's what Andy Bolton was doing when he was basically performing those little knee bends when he was going to deadlift. And it was basically using that elastic energy, kinetic energy to generate force, strength, your body's ability to generate force. So it was kind of like, well, hang on, Andy, are you speed training right now, or are you strength training? Because they're kind of blurred. Then Andy would be throwing up like 200, 300 kg deadlifts, but for speed, to increase his rate of force development, which again is a speed training principle. So it was like, well, hang on, the lines are becoming a little bit blurred here. Then, when I was down at Brunel training with Linford Christie, Linford's repping like 150 kilos on the bench for reps. And it's like, well, hang on, you're really strong, but are you speed training or are you strength training now? And it kind of comes back to this idea that, and then finally, sorry to loop back round to your point there, Dan, about endurance. People don't realize that Jeff Capes, yes, he was the 2-time world's strongest man. He was an amazing fell runner. He used to run marathons as well, like, all 26 stone of him, but he used to run marathons. So when you start looking at, Pujanovsky, Bill Kazmaier, a lot of the strongman of old, they were huge proponents of basically fusing strength and stamina. So when you do have this hybrid approach, and you take someone, as strong as Jeff Capes, and so his body's ability to generate force, but then through endurance training, he's improving capillary density, he's improving his body's ability, his cardiorespiratory endurance, so he can recover between sets. To go back to your example, Dan, he's then better able to put that 100 kilos repeatedly above his head because he has that cardio background. And I think that's what I found really interesting with everybody that I've met, is although they are experts in that chosen field, they're actually really good at all different things, all these different components of fitness.
I think that's the benefit of training in general. I think I've certainly found, just from focusing purely on a more bodybuilding approach of being strong and getting bigger muscles, that I am by definition fitter. Like, I don't run anymore, but when I need to run, I find it a lot easier than when I used to run, put it that way. So it's kind of like, I think there's definitely something to be said. And I'm now again, I've done no sprint training for the last 5 years, but I know I'm quicker now than I ever have been. And there's definitely that carryover. And I think, your approach, which has been do everything, seems to be a good one, because you're probably pretty fit and you look pretty good for it as well. So it's one of those things where I think we often we have our favorite things we like doing, but I think I'm as guilty of it as anyone, that I don't do any cardiovascular training unless I absolutely have to. And I know that some bodybuilders now even are talking about cardio in an off season in terms of improving their recovery, so that they can recover between sets, as you talked about. And there is now a movement. There does seem to be a shift of, actually, no, is there a case to be made for improving stamina in an off season for someone who is a strength athlete, because actually you recover quicker, you get more volume in, eat more food, grow more, all those sorts of things. So it's definitely kind of started to go that way with the kind of hybrid athlete. And there's a really famous, not really that famous actually, but there's an endurance athlete. What's his name? in America. He does both.
Alex,
Alex, what's his name? Sorry.
Yeah, Alex Vaida. Yeah,
that's the one. And like you see him and how he trains, and I'm literally there going, oh my god! And he puts out so much information about just because you think you want to be a bodybuilder doesn't mean you can't do some cardio, or vice versa.
Yeah,
Alex, really, really good.
Alex is incredible. So a good friend of mine, and he is incredible. So he's got a 300 kg deadlift, and he does Ironmans for fun, So anyone just Google him. He is insane. But what's amazing about Alex is he is a specimen. Like, he is a genetic beast. But at the same time, he does actually break down systematically how you can do that the same way that we do throughout the book. So it is, for so long, when you look at Robert Hickson's theory on concurrent training, he was saying that strength and stamina can't coexist. So it's like, we got Tom, and he goes into the gym, and he either needs to train for strength or stamina, but you can't do both. So we wouldn't have Tom jump on a treadmill, do 10K, then jump off, then try and put up his best ever squat, because, and this is Robert Hickson was saying, he believes that you would dilute the potency of the stimuli. So on a cellular level, your body will be like, seriously, which one do you want us to adapt to, strength or stamina? But we're not going to do both. But one thing that Alex does, and certainly one thing that I've learned from him, is you're able to separate those workouts. So, again, using Tom as an example, it would be like, right, in the morning, what are we doing? And it's like, okay, we are going to swim 20K, we're going to drill biomechanics, aerobic fitness, even drilling like nutritional strategies. So looking at energy pathways. Great. That is very clear and concise. That is what this workout is about. You then, go, you train clients, you chill out all day, you refeed. And then in the afternoon, that's when we're going to strength train. So your body's ability to generate force. But we're separating the two, all while considering the body in its entirety and going, do we have enough adaptive energy? Again, a principle of Verkhoshansky, to make sure that you can adapt to both in just 24 hours. And I think that's what's key, whereas too many people would try and fit that 20K swim with, their bench press, squat, bench, deadlift. Then they'll see their friend doing like biceps in the corner and go, yeah, I haven't trained arms this week. And the body's just going, whoa, this is diluted. And that's what's really great about the book. It's kind of teaching you to systematically run your body rather than being that, jack of all trades running around the gym,
I think it's great. Like, I think it just relates into literally everything that's coming out of the NSCA at the moment with all collegiate athletes, and they're looking at people who are far more like multi-sport as well in terms of multi-skills. That they will take them higher into just when they do decide to go down one route and specialize, they're fucking hot shit. Because they've skill acquisition from every other thing and probably trained from different stimuluses, and then they're going like, actually, I'm number one pick. Like, I'm great. That's how good I am because I do a load of other stuff. I mean, NFL drafts this week. That's probably because this is in my mind. But yeah, that's probably what they're going into. So you'd rather have a multi-athlete that's going to dominate after they select than just like drill somebody. Obviously, there's the freaks in nature, like I guess the Williams sisters that just did tennis since they were 1 year old, right? But there's just people who are just multi-skilled. Like I guess Gary Lineker was basically an England cricketer. Really, he was like country, right? But then he can adapt and go play football. So it's multi-skill people.
Hang on a minute, you saying cricket's a sport there, Tom? You're going to give me some credit playing cricket there. You usually give me shit all day for playing cricket.
Well, I can't really say anything because like I played golf about three times last weekend. So,
but I think that's the other thing as well. We give we're not huge fans of CrossFit in general.
Well, we can be
as it's done by the majority anyway. Like, but I think that's the one thing that CrossFit's brought. I think is the fact that people can look at someone and go, "Oh, I really want to look like that. That physique's quality." And actually, you realise they can run miles, they can do all this cardio, and I think that has certainly made people very aware that you can have both and look very, very, very athletic. And I think for as much as we bash it, that's one thing.
But you can't make them ride bikes. So as we found out from the last CrossFit Games, though, and that was probably the funniest thing I've ever seen.
You're so right in that, like, and so this is again, coming back to the book when if it's a concept of, I suppose, general physical preparedness. So again, a lot of things that we're talking about, we've known for hundreds of years, and it's so nice. So again, I'm not hating on CrossFit at all, but they essentially took what was general physical preparedness, a Soviet Union training principle that, imagine way back in the day, Soviet Union, I'm head coach and I'm handed a young Dan and a young Tom, and they come to me, they're 6 years old, and it's just like, okay, like, what do? We don't know if they're going to be big, strong, tall, small. We don't know. So what we would do is this thing of general physical preparedness, where we would have you do these like natural movement patterns, lunge, climb, crawl, nothing specialized, really general. And what this would do was lay a neurological foundation. So this completely like understanding of kinesthetic awareness, proprioception. You understand how to work your muscles and joints cohesively. Then later, once you started to specialize, and it's like, oh, hang on, Tom's quite tall now. Okay, Dan's looking quite strong. Then we can start to specialize. And that's what you were saying, Tom, about you're able to then use that neurological foundation to go, right, okay, now you can pick this up. And you'll find that they'll take to it so much quicker. You use the Williams sisters, which is a great example. But their dad used to have them boxing. So they knew how to footwork, throw a punch, generate force. They understood that. Andre Agassi as well. His dad famously used to hang a small tennis ball from the cot. So, he was kind of used to hitting this ball, hand and eye coordination. And it doesn't matter where you look back through history, there was always this element of you can call it general physical preparedness, you can call it body weight training, calisthenics, you can even call it CrossFit, but it's all the same thing. And I think that's my only thing with CrossFit. I'm like, I think it's done more good than harm. And I think it's great for most people, but let's not say it's revolutionary. It's just this general physical preparedness, that we've known for hundreds of years. That's all, So yeah, not hating on CrossFit, but also not celebrating.
Yeah, when you say it's brought more good than harm, you mean 51% good, 49% harm. So pretty close. It's pretty close. Like the amount of time you scroll on Instagram, CrossFit fails come up, be like, oh, here we go again. Yeah, you shouldn't have been doing that, mate. But yeah, no, I think you're right. So what does Ross Edgley's training look like at the moment? Obviously, we've touched on 20k swimming, right? But using the principles probably from the book.
That was just the morning, so he's having.
Oh no, that was just the morning. That's why I'm intrigued because
this is his break. This is his work, and now he's got something afterwards.
The best thing was he said, "Oh, when Tom does a 20k swim in the morning, then does chest in the afternoon." I was like, "Well, for one, he ain't finished by the afternoon." But I'm now intrigued as to like what it is that how you recover from that, and then. Like I touched on before, and I think the connection went a bit funny, but I want to know, like your nutrition, like what you eat on a day, but also what your training looks like over the week, and then also what you're training for, because obviously you must use the principles from the book to develop your training, or you must have used that as the basis for what you do. So I'm intrigued to know just how much you do in a week.
So that's a good question. I think, and I wish I could show you a little bit later. We've got we've got a gym set up at home, which my girlfriend does not like, as you can imagine. It takes up most of the house. But essentially, as we were talking earlier about, adaptation, so Hans Selye, 1936, famous Hungarian physician, and he came up with the general adaptation syndrome. Very simple. All he found that was by taking a lab full of rats and gave them a lethal dose of poison, they would die. But by giving them a little bit of a dose of poison, a little bit more, they would build up an intolerance to it. We then found out that, this is how the body adapts stress and stimuli. It's that simple. So in any given day, you can only subject your body to a certain amount of stress and stimuli, otherwise you're going to die like Hans Selye's rats. So essentially, that was a really weird
well, I often do compare cardio and poison. That's how I feel about cardio.
So the reason I train at home is so I can basically get as many adaptations in one single day as possible, and I can subject my body to as much stress and stimuli as possible. Now, I know I'm an extreme example, and I always say I wouldn't advise this lifestyle for like most people, but I think one takeaway for everyone sort of listening is, at any given day, you can get more adaptations into your day. So I know, obviously you guys, you work in the gym, you have a lot in the gym, you spend time in the gym. So you can sort of sit down and in any given day in 24 hours, you can say, okay, what adaptations could I achieve? So for me, it's a 20K swim in the morning, where you're drilling biomechanics, aerobic fitness. By the afternoon, having eaten, I might do some intervals on the air bike where you are looking at lactic threshold and anaerobic fitness. Again, eating more. And then by the afternoon, something like strength and mobility. So your body's ability to generate force with increasing the range of motion as well. So at any given point, you've got such a specific adaptation in mind. And I think that's one thing. If you can't, whether it's a client or yourself or any PTs, you need to be able to just stop yourself or someone else and say, what adaptation are you trying to achieve? And if they can't answer you in that moment, or they give you a really long-winded answer, it's like, well, that's probably not specific enough. So yeah, in a given day, that is kind of a day. 20K swim, aerobic fitness, interval training, lactic threshold, anaerobic fitness. By the afternoon, strength training, and then repeat.
Mad.
I mean, I love how you've gone for the eat that frog principle of getting the shittest one out of the way first. That is definitely the best thing to do. If I had to do them, I'd do them in that order, I think. But yeah. I just don't, I mean, I can't fathom, like I said, in terms of calories, you must just burn through. You must be, nearly 6,000-7,000 a day, something like that?
Oh, yeah. So we actually had it monitored on the swim last year. So for those who don't know, so yeah, last year it was a terrible idea. I swam from Martinique to St. This is bad. So I swam from St. Lucia to Martinique, which is 40 kilometers in the Caribbean, towing a 100-pound tree. But because the currents and tides were so bad, I didn't reach the beach. I ended up swimming 100 kilometers, swam for 32 hours, and still couldn't find the beach. So I never made it. I never actually got to. It wasn't successful. But because of the reason I bring that up is because, and you'll know from all sort of calorie calculators you have out there, they can't account for your own biomechanics, and your either efficient running or inefficient running or swimming, and it certainly can't account for pulling a 100-pound tree. So it was really hard to actually calculate the number of calories we were going through. All I know is I was sometimes putting away 15,000 calories a day and was still remaining the same sort of body fat. So as per the laws of thermodynamics, I was probably going through that, so yeah.
Jeez. So what sorry, so Dan, what was your calories last week?
Oh mate, 1,600 a day.
A week compared to a day.
Yeah.
Oh no, fucking 10 days. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, literally. Great. Like it's one of those where the only reason I'm so curious is that I can, at the height of an off season, I think the most I've been on, just doing weight training, no cardio, and just barely moving all that much is around 3,500. I can kind of eat a fair amount. I kind of burn a fair amount off just being alive, and I fidget a lot, and I'm quite sort of on edge a little bit. And you seem the same way. That's why I was curious to know if you've done a 20K swim, like literally how many calories would you need, because that's an insane amount of food. And I mean, surely you're just hungry all the time, like you just constantly want to eat food. Yeah,
do you know what, that you made a really good point there, in that when you are swimming for 12 hours a day sometimes, or 32 hours, so I actually went through the night and almost went into 2 days. There's no such thing as pre-workout, post-workout. It's all intra, and I think that's the thing. So, and also as well, when you start looking at, how much more absorbent the body is, so when you're depleted of muscle glycogen, from swimming, across the Caribbean Sea with a tree attached to your trunks, you have crazy insulin sensitivity. Anything you eat is going to be absorbed and assimilated really well. Yeah. The same way that, protein synthesis is elevated post-workout. Well, it's like, well, when's post-workout if I'm swimming for 32 hours? So it all becomes like intra. So my question, I suppose, on those 3,000 calories, how did you feel? Did you feel bloated? Did you feel you were assimilating it? Did you feel your body was like...
Yeah, I feel pretty good like that. Like, it's for me, it was always a case of, I've always struggled to kind of gain muscle. And I have to put away a decent amount of calories. And I just got to the point where I would just not feel hungry. and I'd have to kind of go liquid calories and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, for me, some days I've eaten, like, even when I push it to near 4,000, I just literally sit there some days and I'm just like, I can't be bothered. So that's why that's what I mean. I don't get how you have the time to go, I'm going to get down this 8,000 calories now before I go and do my next session. Because like I said, I eat 1,000 some days. I'm like, oh God, more food sometimes. And it's, like I said, I'm pretty active and I don't put on weight that quickly. So I just can't imagine what it must be like if you're that way inclined and you're doing all this extra stuff, because again, you're not a small guy. Like, you've got pretty decent muscle mass. So again, your body is going to be flying through calories, just synthesizing new protein, replacing glycogen. I just can't fathom how you get through it and recover well enough.
Yeah, I mean, but your body does start to intuitively know what it needs. So on the second sort of leg of the swim, like, my body knew it was kind of void of electrolytes. I knew that was becoming an issue as I was cramping. So I was shouting at the boat. I was like, "What do you have?" And they were like, "We've got coconuts." I was like, "Right." So I was just nailing coconuts. So it's weird how your body intuitively knows what it needs. And also as well, I should point out, because this is probably certainly the best podcast to talk on it, because I know your listeners are a little bit more clued up than most. But it's not always food as well. It's not 15,000 calories of food. So when you start to look at MCT oil or MCT powder, so medium chain triglycerides, MCTs they are a fat, but they act more like a carbohydrate. And I think, obviously, crazy calorie dense as well. So it has the calorie density of a fat, but it acts like a carbohydrate. So to make up 15,000 calories, when people go, "Whoa, that's nuts," I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, it would be like, I'd be force feeding myself." Like, could you imagine 15,000 calories of rice, or sweet potatoes? So I'm always like, look, that's not the case. You can quite easily chow down on, MCT, oil or, coconut oil, but pure MCT powder as well, which is higher in capric and caprylic acid, which are more easily converted to ATP. So the adenosine triphosphate, the molecular energy of the muscles. So when you are using something like that and you're supplementing with it, it's a lot easier. Having said that, anyone who's listening thinking MCT powder, what sort of word of caution, you have to train your digestive system. If you do nail that, you will be sort of very good friends with the toilet if you go too hard on it. So just kind of
I think it's one of those where as well, you have to do the 20,000 K swim first before I think you warrant having that. Before any of my clients decide on their 2,500 calories that they're going to drink some MCT oil. No, that's not.
I would love them just to turn around and be like, "Dan, I put this in this is definitely what I put in my my Fittest Pal." You're like, "What? Great, all right." So on the note, obviously, it was something I was going to bring up on that swim anyway, Ross. And I've watched a bit of an interview of you. The original idea, I know, was to swim the channel doing that, right?
It was,
yeah. And I find it's fucking hilarious, and obviously, health and safety or whatever.
What was the
talk about the? What was the story about becoming a vessel?
Oh, that was it. No, so because obviously the English Channel holds certain significance for us. We are. We are a nation who's very proud of the English Channel. So that seemed like the logical one to swim. So I rung up when I was doing my research and initially wanted to do this, and I rung up the harbour authorities, and I was like, "Oh, hey, look, I want to swim the English Channel." They were like, "Yeah, absolutely. We'll send you all the paperwork and you can get all that figured out." I was like, "Fantastic." I said, "Oh, just a small point." And this guy who I was speaking to on the phone, really nice guy, and he was I said, "Oh, just a small point. I want to do it towing a tree." And he was just like, "What? Well, you're not allowed." And I was like, "Why not?" And he goes, "Because you're not a registered vessel." And then to my reply was, "Well, how do I become a registered vessel?" And then he hung up the phone on me. So I still don't know how to become a registered vessel.
I'd love that. Just sign off your emails, Ross Edgley, registered vessel. That's quality. You can keep your PhDs and your SIRs and your MBEs. I want to be a registered vessel.
I'm legally allowed to tow shit across there, just by myself. Great, yeah, good. That's
So
amazing.
then the Caribbean heard about it, and as you can imagine, health and safety is a bit more relaxed out there. And they were like, "You want to do what? Yeah, come out here. It's fine."
Yeah,
so then we did it out there instead.
Amazing. Amazing.
That's phenomenal. Well, I mean, like, speaking on, obviously, we're on the extreme side of fitness now. And I guess looking back at your extreme side of ultra stuff, what was the first mental challenge that you did, and what made you decide to do it?
Yeah. So the first one was probably what became known as the world's strongest marathon, which is running a marathon, 26.2 miles, pulling a 1.4 ton car. Well, a little bit heavier than that. My friend was in it driving, but I made him diet down for it. So
that makes all the difference.
Definitely that.
So that was basically, we sat around and I wanted to do something for the Teenage Cancer Trust. My friend was diagnosed with cancer. He's absolutely fine now. But the Teenage Cancer Trust were amazing in they build, for those who don't know, they basically build wards. And before the Teenage Cancer Trust, if you were a teenager diagnosed with cancer, you were treated in the elderly ward or the children's ward. There was nowhere in between. And so that's why the work that the Teenage Cancer Trust do is amazing. And I got to see that firsthand with my friend. So when we wanted to do something to raise money for that, everyone was just sort of sitting around, exactly like you guys are just throwing around like ideas and stuff. And, you know, I had friends, you know, similar to you, where we just kind of went, okay, let's raise money. And it was like, what can you do? Run a marathon. People were like, no, that's been done. Oh, run 2 marathons. Oh, that's been done. And then someone just went, you need to run a marathon pulling a car. That's what you need to do, Ross. And I was like, right, cool, done.
I love how you didn't go, let's tone it down a bit from there, though. Let's go somewhere between a marathon and a marathon with a car. Let's go somewhere in between. You were like, no, let's go for it. Yeah, why not?
Well, that was it. Escalated so quick. So my friend's, he's a motor racer, and so Silverstone heard about this, and Silverstone were just like, this is fantastic. And obviously, they were like, you need somewhere flat. And I was like, well, Silverstone is pretty flat. Well, no, I say that. I thought it was flat. I can tell you now, it definitely isn't.
Definitely not.
No. Yeah, and Silverstone, they were amazing. They threw us the keys to Stowe Circuit, which is the one in the middle, and they just said, like, it's yours for the weekend, like, you know, as long as you need it. So yeah, it took 19 hours, but eventually it was horrible. It was so bad.
Well, I want to know what the worst like injury you've had from one of these things is. Not injury, but like I can imagine your feet at the end of that much just to be in pieces. Like, what's the worst? Like, not the worst, maybe mental challenge in terms of the actual challenge, but like the aftermath of carrying stuff or
Yeah, no, so the triathlon, so it was an Olympic distance triathlon carrying a tree, relatively unscathed. You know, I recommend it. It was fine. But the worst was the world's longest rope climb, which was I climbed a 20-meter rope repeatedly for, again, 19 hours. It seems that's my cutoff. Until I climbed the height of Everest, so 8,848 meters. My hands, I've still got calluses from that. I burnt through about 10 pairs of gloves, like rubber gloves, just clean through. Yeah, but I wouldn't have thought this at the time, but because if you can imagine, you know, for those climbing, you know, rope and you kind of lasso your foot around, but because I'm right-footed, I was constantly leading with that, and I didn't think to drill both. So my right foot was just taking a battering for 19 hours, and I remember I jumped down. This was like 10 hours in, and I just felt as I landed on the floor, it was like I jumped in a puddle. And I was like, that's weird. It's not been raining. And I looked down, and I just couldn't see anything. And it was, I cannot do it justice. The skin down the entire side of my right foot had just blistered and then just flapped over basically.
Oh,
that was just this giant blister popping. So yeah, and then I just was like, do you know what? Just sellotape it up, and I've got to keep going. So
oh my good lord! So what? Okay, then the next one. What's the earliest you've been going into a challenge? The earliest point when you've gone, fuck me, why have I done this? Like, what's the earliest point like you've got to? Like, is it after 10 minutes, 30 minutes? Like, and which challenge was it?
Yeah. Oh
Because there must be one. Like, I do it all the time. Like, I get on the I get on the cardio machine 5 minutes. Like, I imagine it's pretty similar to that, right? Like, just
yes. Do you know? You raised such a good point, though, Dan, because it's I talked about this recently. So it's Tim Noakes came up with this idea, the central governor theory, and all it is he says that theorizes that fatigue is an emotionally driven state, that our brains kind of tell our body, whoa, this is horrible, and it's trying to basically get us to pull the handbrake on, the physiological handbrake. So we'd have all experienced it, or anyone who's run 10k, half marathon, whatever, where you're like, I absolutely can't go on, this is horrible, I'm in pieces, I give up. But then all of a sudden, when you see the finish line, everyone's cheering. Oh, hang on, you've got like a second win from nowhere. And it's this idea that, our brain is trying to preserve the homeostasis in our body. So exactly what you just said there, Dan, when you go, oh, this is horrible. Oh, get out. Oh, don't continue. It doesn't matter where your level is. Everyone will experience it. This idea of the central governor theory, that your brain's trying to trick you and say, oh, you can't go on. Obviously, Roger Bannister, first guy to run under the 4-minute mile, and at the time, leading physician said it's impossible. Like, humans can't run under 4 minutes for a mile. And as soon as he did it, afterwards, it was something crazy, like 10 people the following month broke it. But at the time, it was like, you can't do it. And I know right now we're so close to breaking the 2-hour marathon. And I do believe when we do it, this physiological mental handbrake will just kind of come off. And I think that's one thing, to answer your question, certainly I got hit with, which was probably the 100k swim with the 100-pound tree in the Caribbean, just because there was 6-foot waves. I was seasick. I couldn't keep like my food down, and I was just sort of like jellyfish was stinging me, and I was just like, Ross, what are you doing? What has led you to this point? And so many things go through your head, going like, oh, if I go back to shore right now, will people just think, well, that was awful. I saw how far you. And you think of every reason to stop and keep going. And I think that's, it doesn't matter what your sport, even powerlifting, to use an example we can both, we can all relate to. I always find it really interesting that, on a bench press, for instance, or a squat, as soon as you unrack it, you've probably made the decision in your head whether you're going to do it or not. And that's why things like smelling salts, your friend hitting you on the back, going get excited, because as soon as you think, oh, that's heavy, it's like, whoa, neurologically, stuff's going on that probably isn't going to make this lift a success.
I mean, we've spoken about that before, how, like, even with, like, so I can't, the 5-3-1 by Jim Wendler, like, it's a classic strength program, but when somebody says, yeah, it's an AMRAP, my head goes, no, it's not. Tell me what I'm meant to do. Like, I need to know. No, Tom, just do as many as you know. Yeah, but there's a number you're looking for, so tell me it.
Right?
Yeah, it's just, my brain goes, no, I need my target. I need my finishing point. I need my finishing line. Like, that needs to be done. And then there's other people that are like, yeah, fuck it, just keep on going. And that'll be great for them. Just, yeah, burpees, go. All right, yeah, I'll come back in a bit. Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, it's really fucking weird. But that just happens. And then, yeah, you're right with the breaking barrier. I remember me and Dan training bench press when we were about, 22, 23 years old. And then hitting 100 kilos is a big like stride in any man's career, right? And then I could not hit it for about 6 months. Then
that was a great 6 months.
It was
like
fucking
sat there, like,
I was like, what is going on? Then 2 weeks after I hit it for free, and I'm like, well, what the fuck was that about? I'm just like, well, how can I do one? And now I do all the training in. Now I can hit it for free straight away. Just done, absolutely done. So
that is such a good point. It's everyone would, and it doesn't matter if it's in strength. It's the same, right? I know it sounds cliche. It's all in your head, but it's crazy how it is. And then sometimes you will just have a lift where it just makes you just kind of reevaluate. Oh, actually, what am I capable of? This is such a good point.
So, and I guess like looking at all those challenges back now, you're obviously when was the first one when you did?
I think
How many years?
The World's Strongest Marathon. That was 2 years ago now.
Cool.
So yeah.
So you've had 2 years of essentially educating what you're saying, anecdotally, kind of seeing what works for you. What has changed since you did that first one, and how you prepared yourself to now how you're preparing yourself to a forum now? So obviously there was you must have went in with some kind of plan, hopefully, or it was just like fuck it, I'll do it Thursday. And then now you're 2 years into what you like. Actually, I've got to have some sort of specialist training regimen that you've obviously got. What's changed?
Yeah. So I like that only because it has all got slightly more refined.
Yeah.
And within the book, we talk about a pyramid of priorities. So for those listening, if you can imagine a pyramid, and at the very base of that pyramid, you have the foundations. There are things that you have to do before you progress any further. You can't build, a castle on the sand is the saying. And so like looking at, strength training, for instance, it doesn't matter if somebody came to us and they were like, I want to bench 100 kilos. We get that, young guys starting the gyms. I want to bench 100 kilos. That's, like you said, that is, a tick right there. That is, man points. And at the very first, you need to look at that pyramid of priority. At the very base, you need to actually master lifts. You might get the odd freak of nature who can come in and just muscle their way through some obscene bench press. But more often than not, you need to drill those motor patterns. Neurologically, you need to understand what is going on. After which you can maybe look at that athlete and say, okay, now we need to increase your work capacity. So your body's ability to perform and positively tolerate training of a given intensity or duration. What I mean by that is if you guys had anyone, and somebody came to you and said, okay, I want to start strength training, you need to identify their work capacity, because you can't just go, right, and give them some crazy training routine, or not even crazy, some moderate training routine. But if they've been sedentary, their body's not going to positively adapt to that. Then you can start looking if they are not particularly very well developed, high muscle mass. You can start to look at hypertrophy. And I think too often in strength training, hypertrophy is seen as like a dirty word. It's just like, bodybuilding centric work. Oh, you can't do that. And it's just like, well, no, again, you look at the Chinese Olympic lifting team, one of the greatest Olympic lifting nations, and they will be seen to do bicep curls, basically reverse bicep curls, trying to strengthen that particular part of that kinetic chain. And so what's great is deconstructing the point to answer your question is deconstructing a point. So when you have that end goal, think, okay, that's where I need to be, but what does this pyramid of priority look like to actually get there? And I think too often people are doing it in reverse. Again, to use strength as an example, a lot of people will see someone like Andy Bolton or Eddie Hall, using chains and bands, and they're looking at rate of force development. It's like, yeah, but that's come from years of mastering lifts, years of understanding work capacity, years of actually building the muscle mass required to generate those forces. And I think, too often now you'll see people just go, well, yeah, bands, chains. And it's like, yeah, they have their place, but you need to know how to use them and do the basics first. So, yeah. Hopefully, I've become a little bit more refined and intelligent in my approach, I like to think.
Yeah, it sounds like it. 20k swim. You sound really intelligent. Yeah. That's not my definition of intelligence. I'll tell you that. You sound absolutely fucking mental. But that's fine, isn't it? Anyway, I think that's enough of the heavy stuff for today.
Heavy stuff. That was heavy. Jeez. Yeah, that was heavy, Ross. Welcome to our show. That was heavy.
Now we're going to ask you the questions we ask all our guests.
I had one more that I think it's just because a lot of our people are personal trainers and a lot of them are coaches, nutritionists. That's kind of our world. But one more serious question. I guess it's something to, because obviously Ross has been in the fitness game for a while, and when you got into it, or people that basically, I want to know, who do you look up to, and where do you get your knowledge base from, and who do you follow? Because obviously you're a big guy to follow, and I think what a lot of people like to know is like, where the fuck is this guy getting all his knowledge from? He's obviously learning it from somewhere. He's not plucking it out of thin air. So, people love. We get guests on the show because we fucking love their work, and we want to know them basically, and it's a great way of fucking talking to them. But yeah, there's who you follow. What are the people you're looking at?
Yeah, that's a good question. Only because I think like most, and actually it'll be good to get your opinion on this. So I'll ask you the question afterwards. But I think a trend in fitness right now is, the Insta famous, and there's a lot of people on Instagram, and then, I'm not going to call out any names or anything like that, but there's a lot of people who, with huge followings.
Oh, feel free, mate. Feel free if you want to. It's fine.
But they don't, they're not necessarily preaching, credible science-backed strength and conditioning principles or nutrition principles, and it's a big pet hate of mine. And I think, certainly with the book, that was one thing that I wanted to do, was create an army of experts, not followers. Not that everybody can be, there are some amazing personal trainers and nutritionists out there. And I think what's brilliant is this book will allow everybody to have like a real conversation, exactly what we've just done. Okay, I want to improve my squat, bench, deadlift, and there's an exchange of ideologies, and I think everyone should be an expert to an extent. We're always going to need coaches and personal trainers and nutritionists, but at least you empower yourself a little bit. But there are, like I said, there's just stories of guys like Jeff Capes. You won't find Jeff Capes on Instagram or Facebook and stuff. But, and so that's why it's such a shame that and I think that's why I wanted to write the book, that what he knows about strength and conditioning is amazing. But you have to go, to Lincolnshire and sit and drink tea in his garden. He's got a really nice garden. And we just sit there and he will tell me stories. Like I remember he was talking about the Dinny Stones, and he was like, one of the hardest events I've ever done, Ross, the Dinny Stones. And I was like, the Dinny Stones? I was like, do you mean the Atlas Stones? He was like, nope, Dinny Stones. And I was like, what is this? He then told me about Dixie Dinny, who was a famous Scottish, if you Google it, again, people listening, he's a famous Scottish strongman, and there's a legend, I believe it's 5 stones up in Scotland, that you kind of like deadlift and then sort of duck waddle across a bridge. And it's this event in Scotland that I was like, no. And I Googled it, and sure enough, it's true, the Dinny Stones. And so there's these, and then you look at the Highland Games and you start to like immerse yourself in the history of that. And I just think there's like an abundance of information and stuff out there. Like I said, the Sam Bushman fell runners, what fell runners know about endurance and mental fortitude is unbelievable. But you won't understand that unless you go to Keswick and learn about the Bob Graham, a famous 24-hour race. And, there's all these stories that I call them almost fitness folklore. But too often now people are looking to Instagram and looking at, how to get shredded in 6 weeks. It's just like, no, and that's why genuinely what you guys are doing is just incredible. And I know you joke and say you feel like you're just chatting and catching up, but it's so valuable because that's how we used to learn. And I think it's not a lost art form, but I think what you guys are doing is, awesome for that reason.
So what you're saying, Ross, is you follow us. That's what everyone wants to hear. That's what they want to hear.
They're already here, Ross. We're fine.
Yeah. But no, I think you're right. I do think I think some of the best feedback we've had from this podcast have been episodes where we have delved into some quite deep topics, or we've given our views on things. And I know that from years of training people, like you said, it's not always a case of we do use science, we do use evidence where possible. We always kind of say, yeah, but we've just seen this time and time again. No one's ever going to study whether Deborah should be doing a goblet squat or a back squat. But I know from looking at her, and I know from training so many Deborahs over the years, that she don't need to back squat. So let's actually focus on the person in front of us. And we talked last week on the last podcast about assessments, and we talked about, funnily enough, how Tom's changed. I don't do so much one-to-one anymore, but how Tom's changed how he assesses his clients a little bit, and thought about an assessment process, much like you've just talked about, and how the body as a whole has got so many different functions and so many different qualities to it, and that we so often just assess people and go, right, you can move, you can squat, okay, that's fine, you're healthy. But he was saying, well, actually, no, we should do a 30-second anaerobic test on a Stairmaster. We should do an air dyno, whatever it's called, and we should do, a 500-meter row and try and beat a time. And that's an assessment of someone's, health and their endurance and their stamina, rather than just, okay, they can move their hip through this range of motion. That's all well and good, but actually, how's their performance? And yeah, I think that's the thing that I think that we always talk about, is we talk about the real life stuff, which again is the stuff that you can't really find on an Instagram post and go, oh, that's really good information, because it requires you to understand the conversation, to understand how you got to that end point and how you got to that end conclusion. You have to understand the method and the chat and the analysis of that to then go, okay, that's how I'm going to apply it, because you might then not apply that to some other population, because the population could be the key bit of context you need to get to the same conclusion. And that's why I think I can only imagine the conversations you've had to develop this book must have been amazing. You must have sat there going, oh my fucking God, I've learned so much just from chatting to these people. And it's a great position to be in, to be able to then put that into a book and share that, because like you said, you're not going to find it on an Instagram post or a Facebook post, because it's gone, you know. Even if it wasn't made a post about, it's gone in 2 weeks. No one remembers it. So it's pretty good.
And also, just like you said, there, like the real life kind of understanding of it. I mean, you look at, again, to use an example, like, you know, Usain Bolt, they said biomechanically he's too tall to be a sprinter. When he comes out of the blocks, he's too tall, he's rocking, his biomechanics there. And it's just like, well, he's got a few gold medals that beg to differ. Michael Johnson as well, 200 and 400 meter Olympic champion. What he achieved in those disciplines, those sports, was unbelievable. And I don't know if it would be rivaled today. Again, when you look at, for those who remember Michael Johnson, he was very upright. He used to like stick his bum out. And again, when you look at that as gait analysis, when you look at the biomechanics, you say, well, you're too upright. You're shortening your stride. And again, I was fortunate enough to have met Michael, and it was amazing. He was sitting down, and there was loads of sports scientists in the room, and some of the best biomechanics in the world were really passionately trying to help Michael, and they were just there going like, yeah, you know, but look, and they were looking, going, look, if you're able to do this, that, you can lengthen your stride. I really feel that we can improve a millisecond. And Michael just like sat there, and I remember they went, because your stride, it's too short, and he just went, but, and he had a really deep voice, if you remember, and he just went, yeah. He goes, but if I take shorter strides, I can take more of them, and I get to the finish quicker. And I was just like, yes! Like, it doesn't matter. You can say anything you want, but, like, he's got gold medals. He's the one who did it. So to your point, Dan, it's so right. For every study that you can bring up, and everyone now, I think, you know, it's really easy to go on, like, Google Scholar and bring up studies and start referencing to troll people on these. And it's just like, no, do you know what? Listen to the guys on the front line. And that, I'm not necessarily saying that is Usain Bolt and Jeff Capes. You know, it's guys like yourself as well who have lived and breathed it. You know, and I think that's really valuable, that those people who have lived and breathed it and been on the front line, they will all have something to teach you. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Shall we get to the better questions, mate?
Yeah, well, this is what people hang around for, isn't it? People hang around for these questions, mate. You've got to go for it. You've got to do your thing.
So, I've got it written down. So, I guess we're more famous in the fitness industry for probably our opinions on burgers and cereal, basically. So we have to ask these questions because it is kind of like folklore now. So if you were going to go for, you got any toppings, obviously you got fucking 15,000 calories, you're going to have every single topping going, but you're going to go burger and milkshake combo, Ross. You can have any toppings you like. Don't put, like, we've had some fucking ridiculous answers, and you're allowed any topping you like, and then any milkshake you like. It's a combo. That's your meal. What you hitting? Right.
Honestly, if you guys are up here and if you've not tried it, I need to take you. Okay, in Stockport they do a donut burger. I'm telling you, it works. People look at me weirdly, gone out, and they're like, "What do you mean a donut burger?" And I'm like, "No, but the sweet and savoury works." So it's like a pancake with maple syrup and bacon, and people are like, "Yeah, I'll have that." So honestly, like
totally get it.
Oh, like a pink glaze, and just just sprinkle on that, and then just cheeseburger. Just it works, and just bacon, crispy bacon, it works. So donut burger, and just layer it.
I think
that could be the best answer.
That could be possibly the best answer. I mean, like Tony Gentlecore was pretty strong. He just like peanut butter, fucking shit tons of bacon, everything around there. I think there was that around there, but I mean, like.
You've taken it a whole new level. No one's changed the bun.
No one's changed the
bun.
Just gone you've been like, well, fuck the bun off, mate, and just get rid of
Every time I have seen those on Instagram. They look incredible.
And if we were assessing a burger, what's the kind of the worst part? Is the bun, right? You're like, I wish there was more burger to this. Like, really? Yeah. You're like, all right, let's just fucking let's get donut. They're far better. Great idea, Ross. Good.
Honestly, I will take you donut burger. I'm telling you, it's amazing. You won't regret it. It'll be worth just like have a pilgrimage. Just drive up. Like honestly, we'll have them layered. We'll do like a 20k swim and just donut burgers along the side, and every like 1k smash.
I think we need to get on to. I mean, I've got a meeting with the Ortons for Body Power. Maybe we just ask them to put a donut place in.
Honestly, done. Me, Jamie, and Phil Leonard, we were on about a man versus food challenge because Phil Graham as well. He can put away his food.
Yeah.
So we're right, done.
Well,
we're going on a
if that's the case, then can me and Dan like tag team because we're about like both of us together. We're probably about the size of one of yous. So.
And also, if we're doing this whole thing, I'm not signing up to any swimming. There's no swimming involved. Not happening. Yeah.
Right, on the back of that, and what's your milkshake, man?
Yeah, again, up here they do these like amazing freak shakes where it just gets silly in that you just have a milkshake. It's not a milkshake; it is just ice cream. You know, that consistency, and that's key. Can't be too watery, can't be too thick. You know, you don't need a spoon with it, but you know, you need more than a straw. It's one of those consistencies. Yeah. And then at the same time as well, like up here, it just goes nuts. So there's just Haribo, like layers are there, and then just like Toblerone, but just stick a Toblerone in the top. Let's not get like too, you know, pretty and decorating it. Let's just go bold, you know. So yeah, I'm talking like freak shake, like that whippy consistency with Haribo and a Toblerone in the top. Bang. Done. Let's not mess around.
See, everyone goes far too conservative. Someone was like, "Oh, chocolate." I was like, "What? Like, come on, you've got all the options in the world here. Like, they're just chocolate." Yeah.
Simple person.
Oh, that was it. And then the last one is cereal. Now, there's two categories for the cereal. There's the cereal that is the most decadent, the one you love the taste of, incredible cereal, and then there's your everyday cereal, because you can't have like a decadent cereal every day. You've got to have your favorite one, which is like a nice treat you love the taste of, and then you've got to have your staple, like one you could have every single day.
Yeah, okay. This is probably going to be a bit weird. So, because I love granola and I love like yogurt as well. Weird backstory with the yogurt. I remember when I was with the Sam Bushman in Namibia. So I went like 2 weeks out there. All I had for those 2 weeks was half a porcupine to eat. And basically pretty dehydrated as well. But we found like an elephant waterhole, and it was dry season. So all of the animals from the Namibian desert come to this waterhole. So not only did they drink from it, they also basically use it as a toilet. So I was drinking from this like giant puddle and adding iodine as well to it. So you can pretty much drink anything as long as you add that. But I remember sipping, trying to avoid the elephant sort of shit floating around as well. So I was dehydrated and not in a good way. And when I got back to the hotel after this, I remember yogurt was just like, that was what I wanted, because I was thirsty but hungry at the same time. So it was just like yogurt and granola. So to answer your point, that would be the healthy one. And then when I want to really just go nuts, it's just like add chocolate to it, but like so much chocolate where it becomes more chocolate than granola and yogurt. You know, so it's just a chocolate bar basically. So it's the same, but it's like when I'm going nuts, you know, I'll get like, you know, dark chocolate, whatever brand, and then I'll just add so much to it, it actually becomes chocolate.
I think that's a good shout, because basically we're like, I mean, we've fucking like ranked them from like A stars to fucking Fs, but we would generally go towards like the clusters stuff. Is a little bit like granola, but if you add the chocolate into the clusters, it does change the game, right? Because the peanut butter clusters are shite, and then the good clusters are like with the chocolate bits in it. So I concur, mate. Too dry
without chocolate.
Yeah, so exactly.
It's a good shout, Ross. Yeah.
Yeah, like the yogurt is like kind of lube a little bit, you know, so it's not all like dry, you know, and then chocolate is just chocolate, isn't it?
I've got like, I don't get the yogurt thing, mate. I mean,
I'm with you. I like yogurt. I'm with you. I like yogurt.
No, definitely milk. It's just don't. No, yogurt's a bit odd.
No, I get there's times where like I love lactose. Like I remember, like if I go to a restaurant, sometimes one of my favorite things to have cheesecake. But then I'll say, but with the cheesecake, and they'll say, "Oh, do you want custard or ice cream?" And I'll say both. And then, so they put both on it. And then sometimes I'll just be like, and this is really weird. And I'll say to the waiter or waitress, can I just get like a pint of ice cold milk? So we've got custard, cheesecake, ice cream, ice cold milk, lactose. I'm happy. Done.
I totally get that. Like ice cold milk with fucking anything. You probably rival. I could take you on there, man. Like I must drink shit tons of milk, more than anybody else that I really know. I feel like a child when I have it. I'm like, I'm not gonna have a milk after dinner, right? Yeah, it keeps me strong. That's the thing. It's proven.
Yeah.
No, but I guess there's one more thing I want to ask, Ross. And obviously we know your connection with Protein Works. Obviously, fantastic work with there. But we've got to go. You cannot answer Protein Works in terms of. I'm guessing you have tried other protein bars within your your basically career and being alive. What is your favourite protein bar?
That is a good question. Just because it's you, and you guys will know, having been in the industry, is remember when it was a workout for your jaw?
Yeah,
yeah. Fuck me.
Yeah, like the days of. I remember the first protein bar I had. It was just you just got a hench jaw, trying to chow down on them. So they've changed, but like now they're doing some crazy stuff with it, where it's like wafery stuff. But I still go back. Do you know? I still go back to. Oh God, I think it. Like the cookie dough type ones. I know like Metrex, like, which is old, but the old school ones, they were decent just because you felt like you were getting one. Now, I think like a wafery one, they're not bad, but they're very light. If you want a protein bar, you want a protein, you want a brick. So, but not the consistency of it, but you want to be like, this is a man bar. You know, this is just, yeah.
I think, like, yeah, when we used to smash through Quest bars, like, of going out of fashion at Third Space, and they're fucking chewy as hell.
Looking back now, I can't imagine why I ever used to eat them, but...
We used to think they were just...
Fibrous as well, though.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
One. Yeah, we could probably, like, sample a shit ton at Body Power, which leads into Body Power, Ross.
Yeah.
Body Power is one of those events, though, where you just live on protein bars, and then on Monday morning you regret it because it's not a good feeling. Your stomach is a bit all over the place after Body Power because you've had a few of the BCAAs, you've tried them, you've had a few pre-workouts to try, and it's not a good place to be.
It is. By Monday, you just want a vegetable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just wants a vegetable. Just give us something. You know, broccoli, like just an orange, an apple. Just give us something.
Something good for us. But yeah, so yeah, we're going to be there. Ross, you're going to be there? Are you speaking?
Yes. Yeah, I'm giving a few talks. So we're doing the World's Fittest Book Club, actually, where we're going to have this kind of sit-down chat with, Jamie Alderson, Phil Lerney, Phil Graham, James Smith, who I know, you know all of these guys. So you're going to have to rock on over. And also we've got the sled drag championships as well, which I'm buzzing about. I think it's going to be, just because I don't know who's going to win that.
Jamie Alderson has been training for that all of his fucking last 2-3 years, hasn't he? That's all he does.
Yes, it has. So that's going to be awesome as well. I don't know. I don't know who is going to come out of the woodwork on that. If Jamie is just going to to put on the running spikes and crush it. But yeah, I'll be certainly around for all of those 3 days. So it's going to be nice to actually meet in person and yeah, chow down on some protein bars.
That's it, definitely.
Donut burgers, as we discussed.
Donut
Man
burgers,
versus
exactly. Amazing. All right. I guess for literally anybody who's living under a rock and doesn't know where to find Ross or his book or him at Body Power, give us a brief outlook of where anybody can find you, mate.
So doing the World's Fittest book that's available on Amazon, Waterstones, and WH Smith, and I think after Body Power as well. Should everything go to plan, we will be announcing the World's Fittest Book Tour, which, as you can imagine, having done all of the weird things I have done in the past, we've had to do something quite big to top all of those things. So we'll be documenting that on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter as well. So
you're going to run around each city, aren't you? Literally from place to place. I reckon you're going to probably do it maybe with like a tent on your back, so that you can just sleep on the side of the road and then wake up and then just carry on going.
That would be all right. I would prefer to do that to what we've possibly got agreed.
Okay.
That would be quite. Yeah. So, but you'll be the first to know. Anyway, I'll let you guys know about it.
It'll just be a really mundane fucking book signing, and that's it.
He's got like a real nice tour bus. He's going around.
I'm beyond that, mate.
He's got a feather to sign all the books with.
Yeah. So I've made it now. I don't need to do any of that shit. It's fine.
In donut burgers, just like a competitive eater. That's what I'm going to do.
All right, amazing, guys. All right, any further questions, Dan, or should we actually let him get back to his second session, third session, fourth session?
He's got so many more training sessions to fit in now, so we'll let him get back to it. But no, good catching up, Ross, and yeah, we'll be catching up with you at Body Power. We'll get some pictures. We'll obviously let all the guys know where you're going to be there as well, so they'll come and see. All the listeners can come and meet you. So yeah, thanks for coming on. It's been a pleasure. It's been lots of fun. I think we've laughed a lot this podcast. Most interviews seem to be quite serious. This one's been a bit more chilled out, so that was good. And yeah, can't wait to catch up at Body Power.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And like I said, open invite, donut burgers. Get yourself up to Chester.
Be careful because we're going to take you up on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like I said, every couple of weeks it sounds like we're going to be there now. Donut burgers are on.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks a lot for listening, guys, and we will see you next week.